Hello, everybody, and welcome to August 2024. August begins with a continuation of the Mars-Uranus excitement that unfolded in the middle of July, beginning with Venus square Uranus that takes place on August 2nd. On the world stage, women could be making a greater impact on U.S. politics as seen through the work of Vice President Kamala Harris. Additionally, women's rights and sexual rights could be highlighted in some form. On a personal level, depending on how this aligns with your chart, there could be breakthroughs within your interpersonal relationships as well as your creative endeavors. Be careful of being too reactive within your relationships. However, the material that suddenly arises within your relationships can lead to changes that open up doors for a healthier and refreshed relationship dynamic. Whatever comes up at this time should be smoothed out by the end of the month when Venus trines Uranus on August 27th. August 4th is a big day astrologically. First of all, the Leo new moon takes place at 12 degrees Leo, 34 minutes at 5:13 a.m. On its face, this new moon is an optimistically driven, well-dignified, and royal event. However, when looking a bit deeper, it is evident that there are hardships embedded within the month ahead when using the new moon as a protective chart for the coming moon. Neptune is sesqui-squared to the new moon and squared to Poseidon. Hence, the beliefs of the U.S. people are being highlighted at this time, as well as our oftentimes slippery relationship to the truth. Furthermore, the moon is parallel to both Hades and Admetos, illustrating that the people have a deep sense of pessimism and restriction, likely because their patriotism or their deeply felt beliefs feel depleted or restricted in some way. This placement also suggests that women in particular are being affected by a lack of reliability or support this month. And we could see very ugly discourse aimed at Harris in particular and towards women in general. Within our own life, this new moon can be a time of heightened emotions and emboldenment, as well as continued spiritual deepening, which has been occurring for some time. But what we are encountering in this vulnerable place of searching could include stuck shame, too painful to move through. While no one wants to feel the bad feels, this lunation is a reminder that the challenging spaces are useful. There is meaningful work to do in the areas of our life that make us want to turn and run away. Next, Mercury stations retrograde at 4 degrees Virgo, 6 minutes at 10:56 p.m. Mercury will be retrograde until August 28th and will travel from 4 degrees Virgo to 6 minutes to 21 degrees Leo, 25 minutes. Take a look at your chart to see where and how this Mercury retrograde will be impacting your life. It is notable that as soon as Mercury entered its retrograde shadow last month and then began squaring the separating Mars-Uranus conjunction, that the global tech outage occurred. I suspect that this Mercury retrograde will continue to deliver shocking news and possibly technological mayhem, although likely not to that level. I say this because Mercury squared to Uranus in this Mercury retrograde is its signature move. It's the main aspect that this Mercury retrograde is really emphasizing for this month. So, be sure to back up your technology if you haven't already. Most important. While there are certainly challenges to Mercury retrograde, such as travel, going haywire, plans unraveling, and overall misunderstandings, remain open to the advantageous possibilities as well, especially with Uranus's impact on this retrograde. Be open to new perspectives and fresh ideas. This time can be especially fertile for areas of our life where we are stuck in a certain mindset that no longer serves us. Experiment with ways to open your mind's horizon and get some fresh air into your life. So moving on towards the middle of the month, after August 4th, the earlier part of the month is pretty quiet transit-wise. We have a little brief time to kind of integrate and digest what we have been experiencing over the past couple of weeks, specifically from July into the beginning of August. Then things heat up. in mid-August, especially from August 18th to 19th. And we'll see this kicking in about a week beforehand. So slowly coming back into some action and some feeling things kind of getting kicked up. There's an activating combinations of transits chiefly triggered by Venus and Mars. And it should be noted that the Democratic National Convention takes place during this time as well. It takes place from August 19th to the 22nd. So, on a mundane or worldly United States level, we could see much of this energy manifesting in that arena. First of all, on August 14th, Mars perfects its conjunction to Jupiter at 16 degrees Gemini, 40 minutes. This is an optimistically driven combination, which could denote a time when a great progress is made manifest. We could feel very excited about doing the work that we're doing and making the changes that we're being called to make. More directly, though, Mars and Venus are effectively acting as activators between the Jupiter-Saturn square that perfects on August 19th. So just a couple days later, at 17 degrees, 27 minutes between Jupiter being in Gemini and Saturn being in Pisces. And this is really important. This is kind of the core of all of these transits that are happening at this time is the Jupiter-Saturn square. And here's the background of the importance of this transit. This is the first traditional hard aspect between Jupiter and Saturn since December 21st, 2020, when Jupiter and Saturn perfected their great conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius, 29 minutes. Pluto is currently making its way back and forth across 0 degrees Aquarius, exaggerating both the sensitive point where the 2020 great conjunction took place, as well as the precessed US Pluto return. So there's a lot happening in regards to where Jupiter and Saturn met a couple of years ago and where Pluto's running back and forth over, the changes, the vision that was integrated at this time. This Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, so what does this mean? We would argue that the United States is in a time of immense upheaval and distinct change. The US Pluto return that we have been under the auspices of for at least a year and a half is unearthing the skeletons in our nation's closet. While this is overall a messy process, the goal is to be a stronger and more powerful nation in the long run. We can no longer successfully proceed without addressing our shadows. The Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of 2020 illustrated a new area of government and possibly life in general for the US. The first hard aspect, or the square, that is currently perfecting, as well as those that will take place further into the future, will tell the story of this new path that the US government started in 2020. This is a story that we are currently in, so we likely cannot see the full impact of our decisions and the circumstances that are unfolding. The first square states that we are in a time of adjustment in response to the Great Conjunction of 2020. So what needs to be changed? Obstacles are sure to rear their head at this time, both in the world and personally. So we're going to be experiencing adjustments in our own personal lives as well. In addition, Mars interacting with the Jupiter-Saturn square puts an exclamation point under the circumstances that are unfolding, illuminating the excitement, the inner drive, and the call for action around the changes and events at hand. Venus's involvement can represent several layers of manifestation. Most simply, Venus can provide a salve, a moisturizing, a calming offering for the challenging circumstances that Mars and Jupiter-Saturn are dishing out. But most prominently in my mind is that there's a woman candidate at the top of the Democratic presidential ticket. It is notable that this is the time when the Democratic National Convention will be taking place, and we can expect historical outcomes from the events that unfold, which may not be evident at the moment. Harris will have to work hard and fight harder than her male counterparts, but the fight is happening. She has the drive and the force behind her to keep going despite the hurdles that come her way. Retrograde Mercury perfects its square to Uranus on August 18th, 20 at 27 degrees, 10 minutes. Expect surprising news to emerge around this time, likely within the context of the U.S. political stage, as well as overseas. In a lot of the timing that I've been looking at, the overseas picture is going to get more and more dominant as we move through this year. And on the 19th, the sun squares Uranus at 27 degrees, 11 minutes, reiterating the potential for sudden and potentially destabilizing information from our governmental leadership. This combination makes me wonder if at this time, Kamala will be asked to take over the presidency for Biden or something on this level. While it doesn't look plausible as I write this, the astrological symbology is suggestive, so I thought I'd mention it. The Aquarius full moon takes place on August 19th, so all of this is happening within a couple of days, super active, and is sandwiched right between the Sun-Uranus conjunction and the Jupiter-Saturn square. The full moon is located at 27 degrees Aquarius, 15 minutes, and highlights Uranus by square. Hence, an ongoing theme of destabilization and sudden events are heightened, placing a full moon into an already active hotbed of critical planetary activity, and which really takes the importance of the events unfolding at this time to a whole new level. Within the context of the world stage, this full moon is exactly conjunct to the United States moon in the Sibley chart, and is bringing yet another focus to the upheaval and unrest that we are experiencing in the United States. The people specifically are emerged in great tension. After looking deeply at the astrology heading into the election, this is where we will be at for some time. July ushered us into this energetic, and we will fluctuate in and out of a similar destabilizing intensity until about April 2025. So it won't be exactly the same, but there is going to be, this is a wave that we're riding for a little while. The full moon is also conjunct to the retrograde Mercury, reinstating that sudden and dramatic information will likely continue to pour in, elevating the stress and anxiety that we are experiencing as a whole. Revolutionary messages could be circulating around the U.S. On a personal level, this is a time to drastically rethink our perspective of reality and the future that we are working towards. This is a time to take a chance on something new and exciting, not a time to revel in the past. Wherever we are at in our lives, this is a time to pay attention and pivot where we are called to do so. Now is the time. The time is now. More broadly, we could find ourselves in the midst of a great amount of tension and uncertainty, resulting in a tapped out nervous system overall. So be sure to take care of yourselves, especially around the middle of the month. Use your breathing apps, take a long, quiet walk in nature, and be sure to wait before you speak. Breathe. Really important. More broadly, think back to December 2020 and reflect on what you put into motion around that time. In late 2020, many of us were in a moment of completely rethinking our lives in a fundamentally different way. However, that time was relatively more inward and even more subdued than what we're experiencing at this current turning point. This is a time to make adjustments that more accurately reflects the path that we are on and the trajectory that we want to follow. A lot has changed since 2020, and it's time to take a chance on a more revolutionary vision of our future, one that we've been working towards for a while. This is a critical point of manifestation. So moving towards the end of the month, compared to the events in the middle of the month, the end of August will likely be a time of digesting all that unfolded in the weeks previously, and the vast majority of the action is triggered by Venus, as illustrated in the transit list that you can find that I provide. As stated above, I wonder if Venus is representing Harris as the female presidential candidate. She could be bringing female rights and sexual rights to the forefront, thus bringing women together in a way that they haven't for some time, and if ever, in a whole new level. In looking at Harris's journey towards the US presidency this year, regardless of the outcome in November, she looks to be making a legacy for herself. The astrology suggests that she will be able to create a role for women on the political stage and worldwide in a way that has never been done before. Harris is making history. This month, especially at the end of the month, illustrates that she is actively creating the foundation of this legacy. Personally, this is a time when relationships and even creativity are at the forefront. The month essentially ends where it began. How do we relate to those who we are intimate with? Relationships are really just a mirror into our own patterns and shadow material. So while talking about relationships can seem surface or mundane and trivial on some level, there is a profundity to them that should be held in high regard. The work that we do in our relationships of all kinds are one of the main vehicles to self-healing and probably arguably the most challenging. Thus, when we heal through our relationships, when we really do that work as we are to some level being called to this month, we heal the world in all directions, in directions that we can't fathom. So do not underestimate the power of relationship this month and ever, but this is a really good month to kind of focus on that. So in conclusion, this month will not be boring. The action, excitement, upheaval, and possibly even volatility that reared its head in July will likely continue to unfold. The astrological activity centers around the time of the Democratic National Convention, suggesting that we can expect much of the circumstances that arise this month to be contingent to those events. Be sure to take care of yourselves. The activity of the political stage can get people all riled up universally. And even if you stick your head in a hole, which I personally often prefer to do, you will still feel the intensity and demands of the month in your day-to-day life, just because of the universal energy that's permeating. It is possible that the material this month could bring you back to the commitments and changes that you made in your life in late 2020 and early 2021. Stand strong in your convictions, but also show up with compassion, show up with kindness in your interactions with others. This is not a time to hide away. This is a time to show up, even if that simply means that you're showing up in your day-to-day life as the best version of yourself as you possibly can. Be proactive in allowing new ideas and approaches to inspire you. Life is too fast to get bogged down in old thought patterns. Do something daring that will open you up to new ways of thinking and operating in your life. Some of this fresh air can be applied to your relationships as well, especially since relationships look to be prominent this month. Enjoy the ride, my friends. We are all at the right place at the right time. See you next month.